needs more Hwasong-7 missile. I mean, if Iran needs more Hwasong-7 missiles, the North Koreans might be like, sure, like we'd be happy to provide that to you. And this is kind of where it gets to this whole question of, I don't see like a triangular relationship among Russia, North Korea, and Iran in the aftermath of these strikes, but there's, I don't know how you describe it. There's something that is sort of in the ballpark, if you will. So like I was just thinking about like if we look at the way China, Iran, and North Korea supported Russia in the war in Ukraine, right? China, a lot of microelectronics, Iran, a lot of drones, North Korea, a lot of troops and munitions. They were, for the most part, operating in parallel to each other. Yeah. But at the same time, there are conversations that take place across. So again, I've just heard journalistic reports that in the aftermath, or more recently, Iran has looked to Russia for more help on missiles, and the Russians, because they're busy with other sorts of things, have basically said, yeah, we can't really help you, but go talk to the North Koreans. Like, we have an in with the North Koreans, and like they may be able to help you, right? So there's that kind of conversation that's taking place that arguably might not have taken place before. And the concern for me, at least, is that, at least looking at it from the perspective of North Korea, this is allowing North Korea to act tactically, transactionally, with virtually no regulation whatsoever. So what the CRINC does provide North Korea is a venue in which they can basically operate without fear of sanctions, without fear of anything else. So if it means more troops to Russia, in Kursk or wherever else, they can do that. If it means more ballistic missiles to Iran, or maybe Iran needs more help on reconstituting air defenses, or even worse, more help in reconstituting their highly enriched uranium program, North Korea may be willing to do that because, one, the Chinese and the Russians aren't going to do that, but they're not saying to the North Koreans, you don't do that, right? And so I think that's something that's concerning to me, and in part, and Brian knows this well, because what the Ukraine war has done is it has basically really diminished Chinese influence over North Korea. And if there are many things that you can say that we as Americans can complain about China vis-a-vis North Korea. We used to always call them your younger communist brother. There's but the one thing that the Chinese did do when they had influence was they somewhat regulated North Korean behavior. Now, as a result of the war in Ukraine, they have very little influence. North Korea is entirely in with Russia, and Putin does not care what North Korea does. They can do whatever they want. And that's a very dangerous situation, not just in Ukraine, not just on the Korean Peninsula, but also in the Middle East, right, for what North Korea might be willing to do for Iran.
So in a few minutes, I want to actually circle back to some of these bigger questions around global governance and what all of this means, Victor. But I would like to, you've raised something really interesting, which is sort of CRINC almost like as an unregulated play space, right, for different elements, different actors. And the one that seems to be able to benefit the most is North Korea, maybe by virtue of it having, I don't know how to put this, like the least sort of equities initially, and so it's all upside, I guess, in a sense. Can we say, and it's probably still very early days, but could we say that this Iran-Israel U.S. conflict net has given North Korea a bit more, yet again, a little bit more influence, a little bit more play space, a little bit more ability to exert influence?
Yeah, I think so. I think so in a number of different ways. I mean, for one, I think you're right. They don't have as many equities as, for example, China does in the conflict. But at the same time, they have a lot to give, right? I mean, the war in Ukraine has made them basically an ammunitions producing machine, as well as a ballistic missiles producing machine. If there is one product that North Korea has on the market that has been tried and tested, and they have lots of them, it is short and medium range ballistic missiles, right? And Iran has already benefited from that, as we talked about, for the past 4 decades. And they're probably going to be in need of more of that, post U.S. strike. So I think that certainly has opened up more play space for them. Potentially, it also, and this is a somewhat radical interpretation, it potentially has opened up play space for North Korea vis-a-vis the United States too. I mean, now that the United States has carried out these missile strikes against Iran, that may provide diplomatic space for North Korea to say, okay, like we see what you can do, let's come to the table, right? And President Trump famously likes his friend in North Korea, and he's scheduled to go to Apec in Korea at the end of October. And who knows what could happen there? He could go up to Panmunjom to meet the North Korean leader again, but in a different context, because this show of military force by the United States may cause Kim to say, I need some insurance that doesn't happen to me. So I should talk to the North Korean to the U.S. leader rather than keeping him at arm's distance and hugging Putin closely, which is what he's been doing throughout the whole Ukraine war.
So, Maria, I want to come back to you, because now if we start to think kind of where this might be headed, and we know we're certainly the Iranians are, as I said at the outset, raising doubts as to how long this ceasefire will last. It looks